All right, we got a 2002 PT Cruiser. Our customer tried to take off a sticker. You can see him there in the reflection. We still have part of the adhesive on there, but she hit it with a scouring pad. So we're gonna have to color sand that out and buff it. So we'll show you how we do that. Kind of a little step-by-step here. Get kind of a visual. And you see kind of where the adhesive still is, where it didn't want to come off. So we're gonna hit that with a little 2000 and then color sand it out. All right, our first step here is we want to make sure that we get all the old adhesive off. So what we're gonna do is I used a little Goo Gone, just kind of spray on there just to make sure that all the adhesive from the sticker is gone. You want to make sure that's all off first, because if you don't, as you start to color sand, you're gonna sand right into that adhesive, and then it's just gonna get a high and low on both of the opposite sides. So that's kind of what we're gonna make sure that it's all off and there's no film left. A little quick wipe on there, see what it kind of looks like. Make sure that there is no adhesive left, because you just don't want to sand over that, because you'll have a high spot on this side and this side, but then you'll have a low right on the other side of that high spot, if that makes any sense. Those of you that have color sanded a car know what I'm talking about. So, but it looks like it's all off, so we'll go through and sand it. Okay, we're gonna hit it with a little 2000 grit and a little water. And it's really, you want to go really light. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on it. Just let the sandpaper do all the work. The more you cut off the clear coat, the harder you have to work. So you'd rather cut less than cut more. And make sure you're careful of your edges. You don't want to sand too hard on your edges. I'm using 2000 grit just because I think it'll come out with 2000 grit. If it doesn't come out with 2000, you want to try to cut it with 1500 first, and then go over that with 2000 grit, just so your scratches aren't too deep. So as you can see, starting to dry, you can see that it's all gone, pretty much everything. So you can't see the ring anymore from where the adhesive was. And her scratches, I can still see some of her scratches a little bit. So I want to make sure that I keep sanding some of those scratches. Just kind of sand the edges as close to that molding as we can. But remember, the closer you get to the edges, the harder it's going to be to get all that off. So what's important to remember is everything that you sand, you have to buff out. So you want to keep your spot as small as possible, but you also want to get all the scratches out too, because if you don't get the scratches out, when you do buff over it, you'll still see those scratches. It may be shiny, but you'll still see the scratches. And so doing it by hand, you have a lot more freedom to kind of see actually what's happening. So make sure you let it dry back before you go ahead and start buffing on it. And it looks like most of all the adhesive's gone, but I can still see some of her scratches, and that's kind of got me a little concerned. But I think most of it'll buff out. I'm going to use an extra cut, so I think it'll buff out pretty good. But there's still some scratches here, some scratches here. But it looks like when she tried to get the adhesive off, she went this way, right over the top of this edge. When she probably should have went this way, it'd have been a lot safer on the paint. But she just didn't understand. So we're going to fix it for her, and you'll never even know it was there. All right, we got all the scratches out. The next step is probably going to be your most important step, because we are going to buff this, and we're going to use an extra cut just because some of the scratches are pretty deep. What you want to do is you always want to tape off your moldings. What I like to do is just kind of overlap it, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, just to be safe. And I always double tape, just because when you're cutting, you always want to make sure that you have enough material. I like to tape the edge as well, just when I'm doing the extra cut, and I'll explain why. If you tape this edge, you'll have a little ridge, obviously, when you're buffing, because there's a little stuff that's been sanded here. But most of my cutting is going to be here. When you're on the edge of a surface, it's always going to cut faster than in the flat area. So that's why I want to tape off my edge. Always tape off your corners, and every time anything you buff, especially in a concentrated area like that, always tape off your corners and your edges and your seams and your whatever. Then I'm going to take some 2-inch tape and layer over the top of that, just for that extra insurance. And I will move this wiper arm before I start buffing. And I try to contain myself too. You know, I only want to focus on the area. I want to try to keep it. The actual scratch was here, but I had to go back about 2 inches to feather it out. But I don't want to go over here. I don't want to go any further than I have to, because I don't want to have to blend any more than needed. So always just take care of your affected area and then blend from there out. So I'm going to move this wiper arm and then I'll go ahead and start buffing. Alright, I moved the camera here, changed the angle a little bit. I just got a standard cutting pad, and I've got an extra cut compound by McGuire's. And what I'm going to do is, such a small area, I'm just going to kind of hand apply it off my pad, just because I don't need a lot to do the job. So, and then just go real light. Turn the speed up a little bit. Be careful your corners. Come back and wipe that off and do a final polish, and that's about it. Now I'm just going to take the tape off. You just want to go kind of pull it off slowly so you don't cause any problems. And then I'm leaving my cutting pad on, and then I'll do a little blending. So, and then I can see kind of the edges where I obviously stopped with the tape, because the tape wouldn't allow me to cut through it. So with the compound that I already have on there, I'm just going to go over it and just kind of blend it. Wipe that off. See what it looks like, and then I got one more coat of finishing glaze, but that looks pretty good. Alright, now I've changed with my pad to a finishing pad, and I'm just going to use some swirl remover to give us that final blend. Okay, I'm going to wipe that down and then come back with the final wax. Alright, it's all done. Looks really good. So, come out real nice. Can't even tell where it was. So that's the way you do it. Just, you know, buff it out, a little color sanding, and it's good to go. So, hopefully you can get a good visual of that. Yep, looks perfect. So, there you go. That's basically doing it 101. All there is to it.